Hi, this is Josh Kulp. We are learning Daf Shevui, Masechet Avodah Zarah, Tractate Avodah Zarah, and we are on Daf Lammed Zayin, page 37. If you're a frequent watcher of these videos and you are observant, you may notice my beard growing from week to week. I thought maybe I would begin the video today by explaining that. I'm a huge, lifelong Philadelphia Eagles fan. And a few weeks ago, as you probably know, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And before the playoffs began, I said that if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, I admit I did not think that they would win the Super Bowl, but if they win the Super Bowl, I would grow my beard until my daughter's bat mitzvah. When is my daughter's bat mitzvah? Well, my daughter's bat mitzvah is in 3 years. My wife isn't too happy about that, but we'll see what happens. So meanwhile, you're getting a week-by-week glance at the progression of the beard growing. Exciting, huh? In any case, turning to our page, we are learning, as I said, Daf Lammed Zayin, and it begins with a fascinating discussion about the revoking of the prohibition against Gentile oil. There was a prohibition in the early Mishnah that Jews were not allowed to have any processed foods made by Gentiles, as I've explained many times, probably to keep Jews and Gentiles from assimilating. And one of those prohibitions was oil, but Rabbi Yehuda HaNasiya, not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, but Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, who was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's grandson. So we're talking about a sage that lived sometime in the mid-3rd century, maybe late 3rd century. We got rid of this prohibition. He abolished this prohibition, and he allowed Jews to use Gentile oil. Right, not wine, not bread, but oil. So the question comes up, he's asked the question, well, look, why don't you permit bread as well? Why only oil? After all, bread and oil would seem to have the same reasons. There's no Avodah Zarah, no idolatrous element to them. All it is assimilation. So why not permit non-Jewish bread? And Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya claims that he is afraid that people will call him too lenient. And I think there's a very interesting glance into the dilemmas of halachic leadership back then and probably throughout the ages. There's a tension between what different people desire. You can feel here that some people want more leniencies. They want Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya to allow them to eat Gentile bread because it's easier. Eventually, by the way, Jews became much more lenient. Most Jews became much more lenient on Gentile bread, but that didn't happen until the post-Talmudic period. So some Jews want this leniency. Other Jews, or perhaps other rabbis, will label Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya too lenient, overly lenient. He'll lose his authority. His authority stems from his ability to say, most people want this, but I know that that's not the right thing, and I'm not going to let them have their way. That's at least part of where he derives his halachic authority, is his fearlessness to say no to people. And then there's sort of this poor rabbi who's caught in between. I think he sees both sides. It sounds to me like his tendency is to be with the more lenient folk, to agree with those who want to extend these leniencies, but he's afraid for his role for loss of leadership. I think that's something that you can see throughout Jewish history, maybe in other realms as well, that if people give in too much to the people's desires, they'll lose their authority. Maybe it plays out in issues like taxes, in populist kinds of issues like government spending. I don't want to draw the analogy too far, but it's something I think is worth thinking about. The Gemara then goes off into a discussion about divorce law, because evidently Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya was also lenient when it came to a matter of divorce law. I'll explain very briefly the scenario. This really is more germane to Masechet Gittin, Tractate Gittin, about divorce law. A man can make a stipulation on his get that if I don't return within 12 months, he tells his wife, then this will be your get, your divorce document. The situation is probably he's going on a trip, he intends to come back, but maybe he won't come back. This way his wife won't be stuck married to him while he disappears. What if he dies within that 12 months? On the one hand, he didn't come back within 12 months. On the other hand, divorce can't begin after his death. So if the get doesn't begin until after 12 months, and he died within that 12 months, and the get never could begin because by the time it would have begun, he was already dead. So there's really a debate on this. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya is more lenient. He allows her to remarry. The other sages didn't. It's really not a case of a leniency in the sense that he's abrogating an older law, but more in the sense of a leniency is that he just sees the law differently. He sees contract law differently, divorce law differently. So despite the fact that the Gemara lumps these two leniencies together, this and the oil, I do want you to keep them separate in your mind. One is adopting a more lenient position in a sort of a technical halachic contract matter, and the other one is taking an old prohibition and just saying it no longer applies, which I think is a far more, let's say, controversial act. The final part of this daf is an explanation of a Mishnah in Eduyot, which is a case where a certain rabbi, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yoezer, is lenient on three matters, all dealing with purity, nothing to do with our Masechet, but other rabbis call him Yosef Sharia. They call him Yosef the Permitter. Evidently, that's a bad thing to be called. You don't want to be called Yosef the Permitter. Please don't call me Josh the Permitter. And that's where Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya gets that idea that it's not good to be called permitter. And the Gemara, because there's no Talmud on Masechet Eduyot, it's not a Masechet that has Bavli on it. So the Talmud here goes through at fairly decent length an explanation of all three of those leniencies. It's a little bit intricate. As I said, they all have to do with purity laws. I hope you're able to follow. But if not, you can always ask questions on our Daf Shevui page on Facebook. Good luck.